Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a conlang detour. So, first off, I want to say it's been some time since I've put out a stream, and I'm going to briefly explain what's going on with that and what my plans are moving forward with this stream and the Conlang with Me series and the Yesterlore series. So, basically, I found that I was very much overextending myself with how many streams I was doing each week, and I needed to scale it back. Some personal life stuff came up as well 2 weeks ago, which is why we didn't have a stream then, and I wasn't able to reschedule it. And then last week I found that I wasn't able to keep up with the pace for doing Yesterlore that week. So what is going to continue to happen is my plan is to continue to do one stream every Friday evening. You might notice if you look at the schedule that the timing for this one is a bit different than it was in the past. It was usually 5:30 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Now tonight's is supposed to be 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific. I think that's what I said it to. I started a little late, so we might go over a little bit, and we'll see how that pans out. But I think the time is going to vary in terms of length. I think I am going to try to keep it beginning at 6 p.m. or thereabouts. 6 p.m. until probably the latest would be 8 p.m. So that is the plan moving forward. So there should be some warning in terms of how long it will be, but the time should be 6 p.m. Pacific moving forward for the beginning of the stream at the very least. I do plan on continuing both Yesterlore and Conlang with me, with the Conlang that we have been working on for the past 14 sessions, might be 13. I would need to double check that. But what I have decided is I do want to intersperse some alternative content, just when things are starting to get a bit repetitive, or there's a big gap in sort of interesting stuff that can happen with either series. I'm going to insert some other miscellaneous stuff into the stream schedule, just to change things up a bit. Particularly with Conlang with me, the language has reached a stage where it just kind of needs to be a lot of me making vocabulary. There's some other stuff I definitely want to cover with Conlang with me, but much of the grammar has already been kind of put together, and the real meat of the future of Conlang with me, with that language at least, is going to be how I'm going to incorporate the different humanities concepts into the vocabulary to meet those goals that I had for it. Yesterlore is going to also continue. As I said in the last stream I did, which was now 3 weeks ago, I'm going to be alternating. So 1 week will be Conlang with me, the following week will be Yesterlore. I believe the next stream, next Friday, is going to be Yesterlore. This detour today is kind of taking the place of Conlang with me. If we do more Conlang detours, that will kind of replace Conlang with me, and we might have some other stuff that replaces Yesterlore, depending on what the vibe is, where it kind of fits in the content. But next week on Yesterlore, we are going to be looking at some riddles again. I think we're going to be doing ancient Greek riddles next time, just to shake things up. And I think after that we might return to something a little bit more familiar to the early Yesterlore streams, which were Old English related. We might do some more Old English stuff. I think that's what I want to do after we do the ancient Greek riddles. So that is the plan for scheduling moving forward. So definitely be checking my schedule on Twitch to see if it's changed. after this stream ends, I'll update it for what my tentative plan is for next week, but the timing of that will probably change as I get more concrete preparation for the exact stuff that we're going to look at next week. So keep an eye out for that. And then the following week, after next Friday, is going to be our next Conlang with Me session. Alright, so now that we've got that out of the way, I'm going to get into what we're doing today. What is this little Conlang detour? What does that even mean? So, as I said, the last 13 or 14 sessions have been about my Conlang that I intend to use for the humanities. And we will return to that Conlang in 2 weeks, after the Yesterlore next week. But I kind of wanted to do something different today, and just do a little side project Conlang. So, I've had this idea for a Conlang for a little bit, which is a Conlang. My ideas for it are still very nebulous, and so this stream is going to be a lot of me making decisions about it. So I guess instead of trying to give it a summary, what I should do is just list the things I already know I want from this Conlang, and what kind of Conlang this is going to be. So, things I know about this Conlang are, 1, that it is going to be kind of, so I'm gonna start with the goals, like I tend to prefer to do, just goals. So the goals are, I want it to be a tool for me to come up with different ways of clarifying roles. Roles in transitive. I think I'm going to make this column bigger, actually. Yeah. I want a way to clarify roles in transitive sentences. Oh, it's not wrapping. That's okay. Clarify roles in transitive sentences without resorting to my typical strategies. So that would be without using typical alignments or my typical hacks for role marking. So let me clarify what I mean by that. If you watched the third Conlang with Me, which is the first fully available one, I discussed a bit, I discussed in review, the morphosyntactic alignment of the other language I've been making. And I talked a little bit about morphosyntactic alignment. I talked about nominative accusative languages and ergative absolutive languages, and I talked about active stative languages. And my Twitch Conlang is an active stative Conlang, the one that we've been doing in Conlang with Me. But there are some other morphosyntactic alignments to explore that I didn't talk about for purposes of time. And one that I'm particularly interested in sort of getting a grip on and seeing an example of is what's called direct alignment. And this is where so we have, let's say we have intransitive sentences and we have transitive sentences. And in intransitive sentences, we just have one sort of subject of the verb. Oh, hello, chat. Based, yes. So yeah, I'm kind of explaining what I'm trying to think of for this conlang. So we have intransitive sentences which have a subject, and we have transitive sentences which have a doer, an actor, and then we have often a patient. And then if we have ditransitives, we often have a donor, and then a theme which is given, and then a recipient. And in the other Twitch conlang I've been making, I went with an active state of alignment, so this intransitive subject could be treated like an agent or a patient. It also does something that I tend to do. One of my hacks for alignment, something that I enjoy doing, is I actually split it 3 ways. And what I do is I have what's called a dative experiencer, which is that I use the case that I use to express the recipient in ditransitives for the actor, quote unquote, of a sensory verb that is transitive or intransitive, to indicate that they're sort of an experiencer sensorily or cognitively of the verb. And it's something I like to do a lot. It's like an alignment type that kind of deviates from most, but there are sort of small examples of it in a lot of nominative accusative languages and in some ergative absolutive languages and active stative languages as well. So that's how the Twitch conlang alignment works. Now, what I'm going to do with this language, what I want to do is direct alignment. And what direct alignment means is, so as we talked about with nominative accusative and ergative absolutive, they will either group the subject of an intransitive word with the agent, nominative accusative, or they'll treat it like a patient, ergative absolutive, or both, depending, either fluidly or splitly across different verbs. So that would be active stative, which is what we have in the other Twitch conlang. What direct does is there's just no contrast between the 3. So all 3 are treated the same. There's no kind of way to mark what the roles are. So that's what I want to do with this conlang, is I want to try a direct alignment. Now, what some languages do when they have all 3 rules the same is they'll use an animacy hierarchy. So they'll have things like from most animate to least animate, and they'll have what's called direct inverse alignment, where if it's direct, it's more animate working on less animate, and if it's inverse, it's less animate working on more animate. And that is something I have tried in other conlangs, and I don't want to do that. So I don't want to rely necessarily on an animacy hierarchy either. That would fall, I think, under typical alignments, because it's not the most common alignment for sure, but it is a thing that exists in a lot of languages that kind of solves this issue of like, what is the role in a transitive sentence, who's the agent, who's the patient. Now, there's ultra-based, thank you. There's actually someone in the chat right now who's given me some ideas for this conlang. I've talked to them a little bit about this, and I wanted to ask if it's okay for me to share one of the ideas that you had. With this stream, if you're able to type in the chat, are you okay with me sharing your idea? In the meantime, while I wait for that response, I'm gonna talk about. Okay, yeah, cool, thank you. So one idea that my friend had is to use volition marking on the arguments. So let's say we have a sentence like, let's say we have a sentence like, bird eat fruit. Bird eat fruit. And I'm using like an English word order. So in English, if we had like bird eats fruit, we wouldn't probably say this, we'd probably want some determiners on these. But if we said this, the bird is the subject and the fruit is the object, semantically we can say that the bird is the agent, the eater, the fruit is the patient, because we're going to not assume a nominative accusative alignment. And if the language is direct, we're going to treat bird and fruit the same. So then how do you know if the bird is eating the fruit or the fruit is eating the bird? Well, we can think about animacy. Obviously, it's much more likely that a bird eats fruit than the other way around, that the fruit eats a bird. Now, if this language were direct inverse, it could mark eat for inverse and say, fruit is eating the bird. In that unlikely instance, that would be marked and different from the default. Now, if we went with direct alignment, we could just say, we could jumble it around. We could say eat, fruit, bird, or fruit, eat, bird, or bird, fruit, eat. The order is not mattering here, but what does matter is that we have a bird, we have a fruit, and we have eating as what's happening. Just the fact that birds can eat and fruit can't kind of makes it clear. We kind of have animacy by itself to distinguish this. But it gets a little bit more complicated if we have something where we have two things of the same animacy. So let's say we have you, and we have hit, and we have brother. Let's say it's your brother, for example. You, hit, and brother. So if we have hit, you, and brother, let's put it in a different word order. Let's put the verb first. How do we know who's hitting, the you or the brother? Who's hitting who? We have some different things that we could do in different languages. But one thing we could do, in a lot of direct inverse languages, they'll mark with obviation. They'll say how prominent is either you or the brother, who is more important in this sentence. Well, most direct inverse languages actually would put, because we're using a pronoun here, that's more relevant, and so it's going to be acting on the brother, and that would be direct. Actually, let's say, instead of let's say friend hit brother. So my friend hit my brother, or my friend hit a brother, or their brother. Now it's super, who's more important in this situation, who's more prominent. So we could use, prominence or obviation, like a direct inverse language does, and just, not have the inverse marked. So we could say, maybe in this conversation, I'm already talking about my brother. The brother's more salient, and so I'm going to assume that the brother is the one hitting. So a brother hits a friend, or something like that. We could say that. But the idea that my friend had was to use volition. So volition is when something does something deliberately or has will with regards to the action. Or not even with regards to the action, but just is able to make a choice. So we could give the one who hits something volition. Hitting happened, and the brother wanted it to happen. Now that doesn't unambiguously mean that the brother's the one who did it. Often, agents are volitional, so we might assume the brother wanted it to happen, so the brother's probably the agent. But it's not unambiguously so. The brother could have wanted the friend to hit them. And maybe the friend was an unwilling instrument of that. That is possible. But it kind of increases the likelihood that the brother is the agent, even without marking them as an agent. Volition's kind of a hair away from marking them as the agent, because it's not unambiguously an agent. It's just that they had sort of a choice in the matter. Now, that is a very interesting idea, and I might go with that, but I kind of do find volition to be a little too close to marking them as an agent for me to feel satisfied that I'm deviating. So another option I was thinking about, and this was also kind of inspired by my friend, is kind of doing like a serial verb thing. Well, it could be seen as a serial verb construction. It could also be seen as just modifying, like with adjectives. I think they called it using adjectives. But we could have, let's say we had a sentence like, let's say that like friend hits brother. Let's say that's what is meant. So like the friend is the agent, the brother is the patient. We could do something like friend angry hit brother, or brother hit, right? And modify friend with angry, and that kind of clarifies like they're probably the one who hits the brother. So like the angry friend hit the brother. So the fact that the friend is angry probably implies that they're the one who did it to the brother. Now, it's possible to read it the other way. The brother hit the angry friend. Maybe the friend was angry, so the brother hit them, or the friend is angry because the brother hit them. It's not entirely clear, but it's a little more clear. We could also pick a different adjective. We could say like friend, let's say the friend has a weapon of some kind. Friend with stick. Brother hit. So now it's very much more likely that the friend is the one who's hitting it because they're hitting the brother, because the friend has the weapon that they can use to hit the brother. So that's another option. Now, something that's kind of similar to the adjective idea, which is sort of like the serial thing that I mentioned, I could say the friend is angry, and then the brother is hit. This has kind of the same ambiguity that it did with the adjective, but we could say that the angry is the verb. Like the friend is angry, and the brother was hit as a consequence. It could, however, be the other way around. Because the friend was angry because the brother hit them. There's no word because here, but there's also no therefore here either. So we could say that like the clause order is fixed, like, you know, it's cause then effect and not the other way around. We could kind of like solidify that in the language to kind of help make it clear. What that would mean a lot of the time is that there aren't a lot of transitive verbs at all. A lot of verbs just become intransitive by virtue of this kind of thing. You have like, if you want to specify an agent, you kind of have to give them a motivation, and then they do it. Like it happens to the patient. I'm trying to think of another example. Let's go back to the cat, or let's say like bird eats fruit. Let's say like bird, this is I think based on an example my friend made. It's like bird, hungry, fruit, eat. Again, the fruit's probably not eating, but saying that the bird is hungry extra clarifies, like the bird is probably the one to eat. The bird is hungry, the fruit is eaten. So if we're gonna always be clarifying agents like this, we probably will just end up with a lot of like passive voice sounding sentences where like fruit is eaten. I'm not stuck on the word order, by the way. I haven't decided how free I want it to be or how strict I want it to be. But if we're often clarifying our agents like this, maybe in a sentence like this we wouldn't need to because of the animacy, but when it's ambiguous animacy, it could be useful to clarify and therefore like end up with either agents with more adjectives on them than patients, or like a lot of passivized or intransitive patient plus verb situations when we have an agent who's then described with a verb and then a patient and then another thing. So I want to try to think of more examples. So yeah, I'm going to just say I want direct alignment. I want an unconventional way to clarify roles. And the other goal I had for it is just, I want it to be small. Like, I want it to have a small vocabulary, small set of sounds. I want it to be kind of minimal, because I don't have, like, lofty ambitions for this language. I kind of just want it to be fun. And I want to just check out how I can use this feature. Maybe it'll give me ideas for things I can do in other languages that are interesting. So I want it to be small, both vocab, phonology, and also just overall, like, grammar. I want it to be kind of minimal in, like, what's marked. I kind of don't want any kind of or most kinds of inflection morphology. I'm going to say no to, probably. Maybe minimal derivation as well. Use sesquisyllables. I don't think I'm going to use sesquisyllables. I already have some vague ideas for the phonology. I'm saving sesquisyllables for another conlang. I do have an idea of the conlang where I want sesquisyllables, but I don't think this is the one. But I do want a minimal phonology. But I want that minimal phonology to do some weird stuff. Or, not weird stuff. It's probably pretty standard stuff, but I want it to kind of be uniquely small in, like, an exceptional way, and I have some ideas for how I want to do that. And I think the last thing I said was just toy with cool features to implement elsewhere, potentially. So I probably won't be, like, translating a novel into this conlang anytime soon. It's not going to be a huge priority. This is just, like, a fun little side thing I'm going to be doing. I might develop into something more later. I want this to be wrapping. There we go. Alright, so those are the goals. So I'm going to do some more examples on this page, example sentences, and then I'm going to move on to talk about my ideas for the phonology. Let me make these a little bit wider. Let's make them like 90. There we go. Okay, so I want some more sentences that are ambiguous to the animacy. I also don't think I'm going to have a strict animacy hierarchy. I don't think I'm going to have, like, this word is classed as inanimate. I think I'm just going to let it be sort of logical, like, if it's an inanimate object that's being referred to, then it's going to be just understood, and there's not really a need to kind of overtly mark the agent in any way. So that is my idea there. One moment. Alright, sorry about that. There's just some background noise that came in. So I'm going to think of some more examples. Let's say let's do one with an experiencer. Let's say Jean sees Rob. I'm just going to make up these names. So Jean sees Rob. And I'm not sure if that's going to mean Jean sees Rob. I'm going to have Jean, I'm going to have Rob, and seeing is what's happening, and I need to clarify who's seeing who. So what can I do to mark the actor here? So the actor is probably going to be a semantic experiencer here. So one thing I was thinking of doing is I was thinking of, I could have something like, maybe a more general word that means sense. And then, instead of actually having the person who sees be the argument, I'm going to have their sensory organ be the argument. So you can have like, maybe if I want Jean to be the one who sees Rob, I could have like, I of Jean, in some way indicate that the I belongs to Jean, and then Rob. So like, Rob, so it's not Rob senses Jean's I, probably, just if we're gonna guess who's doing what, probably the I of Jean is sensing Rob. Another idea is that I could have I be the word for see. That's what I do in a lot of languages, but then it becomes less clear. But I could have like the Jean, have something like Jean word Rob, and what that would mean is like Rob is visible in a Jean word direction. But I kind of don't want to do that because that feels like marking Jean as an experiencer. So I'm not going to do that. I think I like my I of Jean better. Idea. I like that a lot. And that kind of goes with another idea I had. It's not exactly a goal, but it's an idea of what I wanted to kind of go with the small vocabulary, is I kind of want verbs to be a closed class, like a very closed class, and kind of use more description on the nouns to get these kinds of things across, nouns and adjectives. So that's my plan, I think, with sensing, is I'm going to have, like, however they're sensing. This is where I just give up and use volition, but I like the I. Thank you. Yeah, I like the idea of using the sensory organ for senses, but that only gets across so much. So I'm going to reference something from R.M.W. Dixon, the linguist I discussed in, I think it was Conlang with Me 5, if you want to see more on his ideas on adjectives, I talk about that. He also has some ideas about verbs, and he classes verbs into 6 types: motion, rest, effect, giving, attention, and speaking. Now, it's been a while since I've read his stuff on types of verbs, so I'm not sure I remember everything that falls into each category. But I was thinking I would have a similar kind of like small set of categories of verbs, but they would just correspond to one verb that means that thing. So instead of these being categories, these would just be the verbs in the language. So I think attention would probably be like sort of my sense verb or something like that. This could kind of be like transfer, although I'm kind of tempted to merge giving with motion. I tend to do that in languages morphologically. I think I might just do it lexically here. Especially because I don't intend, I don't want to have a verb that means transfer, I think, because I don't want to have cases or any kind of prepositions that will indicate direction. I don't want like a to or a from. So I think I want just like maybe 1 or 2 verbs that indicate direction. So those would fall into motion. So giving and receiving would kind of just be like motion towards and motion from, or just the point of view. Like giving and receiving just kind of depends on the point of view of like who is the the recipient and the giver are the same in both giving and receiving. I'm gonna kind of maybe clarify this. If I have give and I have receive, let's do Rob and Jean again. Let's say Jean gives Rob water. Okay. If I wanted to change this to like a receive, right, I could say like Rob receives, actually I'll kind of clarify this better. I just did dative shift here in English. I'm going to say water to Rob. I'm going to say Rob receives water from Jean. All that's really changed is my verb, like in terms of the roles. Everyone has the same role. Rob is still the recipient, Jean is still the donor, and water is still the theme. It's what's given. So all I've done here is I've changed the verb to change who the subject is. I've changed the subject from the donor to the recipient with the word receive. But I kind of don't need that semantically. It's just a tool, really. Doing this is a tool to have a certain person be the subject, because English has subjects, well, most languages have subjects, but the subject matters grammatically in order to have subsequent sentences make sense and to highlight who's most important. So in this sentence, Rob is kind of the most important one, and in this sentence, Jean is kind of the most important one. But Jean has the same role in both sentences, and Rob has the same role in both sentences. So I don't really need two words for give or receive. I could just have, let's say I weren't doing what I'm doing in this language, I could have a word that means transfer. So it's from Jean to Rob, transfer to Rob from Jean. Now the sentences are identical other than the order. However, I don't want to say from Jean to Rob in this language. I don't want a to and I don't want a from, really. I think I just want my verb to be to or from. So I just want go to and come from, maybe, are my two verbs. So what I can do is kind of that serial thing I was talking about again, if I end up doing that. Where I could say water goes to Rob. Maybe I could do that. And then come from Jean. Now you could argue that my verbs are prepositions here, water to Rob from Jean. But I'm fine with that. What I want is that there isn't a distinction between verbs and prepositions, really. If it can be analyzed either way, I'm happy. I just don't want a verb and then also prepositions that are marking a role. I'm fine if the verbs themselves imply a role, because I could kind of still reorder things if I wanted to. I could say go to Rob, water, come from Jean, or come from water, come from Jean, go to Rob. If I wanted to highlight different things, I might use word order in that way. So I kind of just want two motion words. I want to and I want from, and I'm gonna label them as prepositions, but they're verbs basically. Motion to and motion from, and then rest is just gonna be location at, or locate at. So move to, move from, locate at. And I kind of want two different ones here. I want locate at, and I want stay at, to kind of emphasize duration, probably. I think I want that. I might go back on that. Now since, there was attention and there was effect. I kind of have a different plan for that. What I kind of was thinking, one way to clarify that I haven't talked about, it is a way to role mark, but it's kind of role marking in the opposite way that we're used to. So let's say I have a more violent sentence. Let's say Rob, Jean, kill. That got really intense, but let's say I have Rob kill Jean. And let's have a much more peaceful sentences. Let's say Rob cake bake. Now, one thing we could do is, instead of marking the agent and the patient, we can kind of, I guess it is technically a kind of patient marking, but there's a concept in semantics called constructum and destructum. I think it's only used in the analysis of one language, and it's a contested analysis. but a constructum is something that is created as a result of the verb, and a destructive is something that's destroyed as a result of the verb. So if Rob killed Jean in this sentence, then Jean could be marked for destructum. And I think the reason I didn't talk about this earlier is just because it feels, again, kind of a little too close to marking a patient. But it's a specific kind of patient. So instead of having a verb kill, I could just say, like, I could have just like a dummy verb do or something like that, where it's just a meaningless verb, do. And then, so Rob does something, Jean is destroyed as a result. Similarly, if Rob bakes a cake, I could also have do. Maybe I can like modify that with like hot or something. And then I could have cake constructum. So a cake was created as a result of the hot action that occurred. So that's another kind of option I have. It kind of feels like a mirror image of the volition thing, though, where volition feels a little too close to just marking an actor. Destructum and constructum feel just like you basically just are marking the patient, just with a specific flavor. So it is a little bit unconventional, but it's still marking the role clearly, which is why I don't want to do it. Hot, yeah, you could do hot Rob, do cake. That's a good idea. Thank you. That is, we could have like murderous. We could have like Rob, murderous, do something to Jean, and you just have to guess what he did. Now, what I kind of do feel like might be useful is just create, destroy. Because that puts us back in sort of a more direct situation where, like, it's not clear who created or destroyed whom. Oh, this would be create, this would be destroy. I wonder what murderous Rob did. Yeah. I wonder what murderous Rob did to Jean. Yeah, no. So now we're back to the thing I actually want to have a problem with. Like, I want to create a problem where the agent and patient are unclear so that I can find an unconventional way to solve it. I think marking Jean as destructum or marking cake as constructum is too much like just marking the patient. But if that sort of marking becomes the verb, then the question becomes, how do I tell who did what? That brings us back to a more like direct alignment question that I want to solve in this language. So what I could do is I could, Rob murderous again, or Rob weapon, and I can do Rob heat, right? Rob, with the help of heat, creates a cake. It's probably not cake created a hot Rob, and Jean destroyed a weapon Rob. If I have a way to like attach these modifiers to the noun, which I have an idea for how I'm going to do that, then that becomes a weird way to clarify it without actually marking the role. I'm just kind of providing some words that help with the interpretation. Both of these can also be solved with that serial verb thing if I do like an order for verbs. So I could say like Rob has a weapon, and weapon could be like the verb. I could say like Rob wielded a weapon. So what this could just mean wield a weapon or something as a verb. And I could have like Jean is destroyed. That brings us back to sort of our solution of there aren't really any transitive verbs at all. And we just have a series of intransitive verbs that kind of clarify what's happening. And here we could have cake. We could have like Rob creates, and then cake is hot. Or we could have Rob, Rob uses heat. Rob heats up something, and a cake is created as a result. If I go this route, it's increasingly seeming like going this intransitive only route basically puts me with a sort of like cause-effect word order, which I don't hate. It is a really cool solution. I could like talk about like the first thing that happens is the cause, and the second thing that happens is an event. But the thing is, I would kind of want to avoid a situation where it could be really possible for me to end up in a situation where the verb is the same twice with the agent and the patient. And I'm basically just replicating a agent-patient word order. Because here I have the agent, and here I have the patient. If it's like Rob destroys, Jean is destroyed, I basically have an agent-patient word order with this cause-effect thing. So I'd only really be happy with it if it were ungrammatical to repeat the verb in this way. It's like you have to kind of do something different with the cause verb. It has to be different. Like, you just can't have the same verb twice. But that feels like a band-aid on the problem, honestly, to just kind of post hoc make a rule that prevents it from technically being word order that determines the agent and patient. Then I don't think I've succeeded in my goal. So let's try a different strategy. I also think I'm going to move this over. I kind of want the goals to be moved over to the side. Okay. Yeah, the more I think of it, the more I don't like this cause-effect solution, as much as it's cool. Now, of course, I could just not have the order be strict. I could say Jean destroy Rob weapon. Or like cake create Rob heat. And then it's not always, cause effect. Like a cake creates something, now Rob is hot. Now the way that you get out of that problem is, of course, the animacy. The cake's probably not creating anything. With Rob weapon, Jean destroy, you could say Jean destroys Rob is wielded against by a weapon, since I'm not having a sort of active-passive distinction. It could be ambiguous in this language. So it could be possible that, like, Jean destroys Rob is stabbed with a weapon or something. Rob has a weapon in him. Something like that, where it's equally ambiguous, I think. I think it doesn't actually solve the animacy problem if I make it free, but it doesn't solve it doesn't make it feel like true direct alignment if I have the word order be fixed. So fixed word order isn't really working, and being able to swap what order the clauses come in is also not really working for me very well, at least with the same animacy arguments. So I think I'm going to go more the adjective route, where, like, I describe either the agent or the patient. I think as much as hot Rob would be interesting, I think cake hot, like, when it's like the result, is more interesting, because I don't want it to feel like I'm always modifying the agent, because then it does feel like it is a roundabout way to mark the agent, but it does feel like a way to mark the agent if the agent is always the more described one. I think I just want to have to use description to clarify, like, one or more of the arguments, and I don't want a fixed, agent or patient gets more marking thing. What I kind of want to do is which one gets marked is the topic. or maybe not the topic. Maybe, actually, I think it would be better if the one that gets marked is the focus. Actually, not the topic. I haven't really talked a lot about topic versus focus on this, in any of the Calling With Me streams, actually. I don't feel like I want to get into it right now, but I do kind of want the thing that's highlighted to be the thing that gets more description. So maybe the distinction between Rob, heat, cake, create, and Rob, cake, hot, create, is whether or not I'm putting more detail with Rob, who had heat, or cake, which has heat as a result of the create. So it's kind of like in this sentence, I'm saying Rob. This would maybe translate better to Rob baked a cake, and this would maybe translate better to a cake was baked by Rob. I'm kind of using passive in English to change what the focus, or not. No, I'm not really changing the focus, but I'm changing what is being highlighted more. I'm using sort of making a new subject for that. So I think I am going to go the modification route. So I might have create, destroy, I might have locate at and stay at. Create, destroy. Let's see. Yeah, I could have just like sense. Yeah, sense. Ignore, maybe. Oh, you know what? I kind of want these to be pairs of opposites, because that's kind of what my idea was with a lot of the other words. I kind of want these to be pairs of opposites. Remove to, move from. Locate at, remove. I think remove is really similar to move from. Actually, to be honest, locate at is pretty similar to move to. It's just that you're not moving. I think I might just do it exist. Not exist. And then I might do create, destroy. For speaking, I kind of want to keep it very simple. I think I'm just going to have like communicate and maybe don't. No, I kind of want communication to be a noun, honestly. I think I'm going to do share and keep instead. If I do have transfer, it's going to be share and keep. Or I don't even really know what to call this. I don't think having category names for these matter anymore, because I just have these pairs. Share and then keep. Yeah. I like this. I like this. Okay. Now, I want to get into what my other ideas were now for the other, because I had said I had other ideas for what I want to do with the parts of speech and with the language in general. The idea I had, if I was going to do the modification thing, which I think increasingly I do want to do, I want to do a consonant mutation system. So here's my idea. I want a very minimal phonology. I kind of want it to just be optional consonant followed by a vowel followed by consonant. Maybe even like an optional consonant and then a vowel. Maybe even optional consonant again. I just don't want any codas, I think, is my only thing. I don't want any codas. I don't want any, like, final consonants. So that's my first idea with the phonology. The only problem with not having an initial consonant, at the very least, is it kind of ruins my my idea for consonant mutation if there are no consonants. But I can have a rule for what I do if there's no consonant. So tentatively, I'm going to allow null onsets here. But my idea for the phonology was actually pretty small. So my idea goes like this. Do I not have that character? That would be annoying. I think I don't have that character. Okay, let me grab that character actually then. character now. Okay, cool. It's just when composed doesn't have every character. So here's my idea for like the contrastive root phonemes at least. I want a velar nasal, or not a velar nasal. I want a labial nasal. I want a palatal nasal, which does not read well in this font actually. It's annoying. I'm gonna make this bigger. Okay, and then I want kind of a situation where my alveolars and my velars don't contrast. With the prospect of no onset, though, I might be changing my idea with that. No, I don't think I'm changing my idea. Okay, so we'll see. I'll think about that some more. I'm just going to give what my idea initially was, and I can change it. So we're going to do palatals again, and then distinction between alveolar and velar. And this was actually kind of it. I just wanted 6 consonants, and I wanted 3 vowels. I think I was going to do just a typical 3-vowel system of like the AU. I might have this be O. I do that a lot too. I might have this be A. I don't know. Just 3 vowels, I think, was my idea. But in any case, what I was thinking of was there would be a system of lenition when you have a modifier. So let's say your typical word is something like, oh yeah, and I wanted intervocalic lenition too. So at least with the stops. And the lenition for intervocalic situations was just going to be that they'd be voiced. So how that would work is my like true phonemes. I'm going to go like this. So let's say I'm going to do this. And then there's sort of alteration. So intervocalics, that would be between vowels. And then there would be as a modifier. So I'm just going to put that after a dash. Let's say I'm dashing between a head and a modifier. So if I'm, and when I say modifier, I mean this kind of situation where we had like, it's not there anymore. Where I had like rob, or let's say like cake, hot. So like hot would be the modifier to cake. If I go in that order, I think I might. So my idea is intervocalically, the nasals will not change because they're typically already voiced, so they don't need to be voiced. And then when they're lenited, they turn into something else, and I think that would make more sense to talk about after I talk about these stops here. So I have these stops, and when they're intervocalic, I'm just going to voice them, I think. So it's just going to be like this, and then D or G. And then the lenition is where it gets interesting. So my idea is I would lenite by way of making them into fricatives. So if I would just want straight up, like, what are the literal fricatives for these values? If I don't move them at all, that's what they would be, voiceless fricatives. So the T would be like S, and the K would be like that. Is the idea here. And I'll move these down as well. Now these, what they would become are the voiced counterparts of these when lenited, was my idea. So something like that, but maybe nasalized. Maybe I'd still nasalize it. This could be like, wait, I don't think I have that on my keyboard either. If there is a way, I'm probably just forgetting it. This one, but maybe nasalized, and then somehow nasalized, or this one, but somehow nasalized. So that was my idea there for the lenition. And then I might kind of shift some of these sounds over to be simpler for me to pronounce, just because I don't really have high ambitions for this language. I don't want to be making it like particularly uncomfortable for myself. So I think what I might do is just have them be more common fricatives that are close to what these are. So I think I might just do like a maybe like a j, and this will be like a sh, or something similar. Might be a palatal alveolar. I don't have that key either. I'll just do it like that, and then yeah, and then this could be like z, or just the fricative z, and then these can stay the same. Or I might shift this over to be like a th sound, so like a theta or that. Like a th or a s or a ch. So those were my rough ideas for what I would do with the consonant mutation. So this would just be intervocalic. That's just what would happen to them pronunciation-wise. They wouldn't have to change spelling, but these would be actually contrastive. These would separate these phonemically, because they'd be, giving a different meaning. They'd indicate that the word that is beginning with one of these sounds is the new word is a modifier. So it's kind of like marking it as some kind of adjective or adverb. Now, the thing that gets tricky is if I have nothing. Like, what happens? I could have just put these all in one row, huh? Think of that. My issue becomes, what happens when I don't have a consonant at the beginning? So nothing, intervocalically, nothing obviously is going to happen. But what about when it's a modifier? How do I indicate that this word that begins with a vowel is a modifier? Now, one temptation I have is just to put H here. But I don't like phonemically distinguishing between H and H. I can. It's not a problem for me. I just don't like doing that for a minimalistic language, really. I don't like that. I don't like doing that. So, my alternative idea might require me to let go of this whole conflation of the alveolar and the velar that I kind of like, where instead of having them be, shared like this, or at least with the stop, I could have this just concretely be a T, and this be an S, and then this would be H, and now I don't have the same like S and velar fricative thing contrasting with H. But honestly, even then, H and S, I'm already contrasting S and Z if I do this. Although the Z can also be like a sound. So another thing I could do instead, just occurring to me, to maybe make things contrast a little bit less. I could have this be a K, have a T here. So K only exists between the vowel initial words and their prior word if they're modifying. And then what I can do is I can have this just contrast as alveolar versus velar nasal. I still have like sh, s, and zh, which is a lot of spirits. being distinguished. What I could do is have this be more like a y sound. Yeah. And then I could concretely go with H here. I like that. I kind of like that. Now, I had an idea for how to spell these as well. And I think it would horrify some people, depending on if they're in the chat or not, still. But my idea is I want to spell the lenited forms, the consonant mutated forms, with an addition of an H. So this is going to be spelled TH. This is going to be spelled CH. If I spell this with C, that is. I kind of want to spell this with an Enya, just because that makes a lot of sense for me. I kind of want to spell this with PH. I want to spell this with an NH. I want to spell this with an Enya H. Maybe. And then this with an MH. And then we have K, which I might just still spell K. Or Q. Or something silly. I kind of want to spell it with a C, but then this doesn't really work anymore. I'll just spell it K, I guess, for now. I don't like that. Honestly, I really like the H thing for some of these. Ones I want to keep are, whoops, this for sure. I'm not going to bold it. I'm just going to italicize it. I want to keep this. I'm really married to this and this as well. I really like TH for H. Very Irish-y. Same with MH for V. That's very Irish-y to me. Honestly, I kind of like NH for this one. Now it feels like kind of Portuguese-y if I spell it like this, but not for that. If it were Portuguese, it would be spelling this sound, yeah, but it's spelling yeah, which is pretty interesting. And what I could do is I could spell this with a G, because I'm not using G for anything. So N just becomes G as a modifier. Nah, don't hate that. I think what I don't like is part of my motivation for doing this back, like the alveolar and the velars be related, is I had some kind of idea that I wanted it to be related to some kind of vocalic phenomenon. Like I was going to have different allophones of I or U, depending on if it was like a palatal or an alveolo-velar sound. Like maybe it might be more lower and back with the alveolar ones, and more, front with the palatal ones. And I didn't want those to be like vowel features. I wanted them to be consonant features, but they'd affect the vowels. But I think the thing is, if I sacrifice that distinction, because I'm thinking I might want to sacrifice the palatal versus alveolar thing. I've already kind of sacrificed the velar alveolar thing by having K, which seems from T in this kind of way that I didn't want. And I can't do GG, it has to be D. Now that I don't really have any sibilants other than this one, I could have S here. And I could go back to T, K, and D. I can't really... I mean, it could be G. I'm not going to spell it G. It'll probably still be spelled T or K. Let me think about how many phonemes I'm left with if I do some kind of flattening, because I'm thinking of doing some kind of flattening. That very instantly flattens the amount of words I can have in the language. Although I am fine with having few words in the language, so maybe that's not a problem. You know? Yeah, okay. Remodeling. Doing some remodeling. Okay. Okay, here's my remodeling idea. I'm going to put, I'm just going to say, let's say like medial mod initial. So if it's a modifier in the initial position, it gets this one. So here's my idea. So I have, let's say nothing. Okay, nothing. We have, let's go back to 10 here. Let's say I have M, I have N, I have P, I have T or K. Okay. 4 consonants rather than 6. Gives me a lot fewer possible words, but I think I'm willing to live with that. Now, let's take a look at what happens with, so immediately nothing happens if there's nothing. Of course, immediately M will still stay M, N will still stay N, P will be B, and TK will be D or G. Okay. Now, if we go to lenition, still not sure about that, but I know this is going to be V, which is spelled MH. This can be palatalized, which I lost the, there we go. Let's do this. Let's do palatalizing it. I don't know why it would be palatalized, actually. I need to think some more about that, but let's just say it is. We could do, this becomes F, which will PH, and then this will become H, which goes TH. I think I might spell it T. Or I might spell it C, actually, and then it'll be TH. Or CH. I like TH better. I kind of like C becoming TH a lot, actually. I kind of really like that, actually. Ooh, because this can still... Actually, no, that's fine. Maybe I do go back to having C here. TTH, C. Yeah, this is a little bit weirder, actually. Now, one thing I could say is that maybe being in a modifier position ends up causing, for whatever reason, gemination of the N, which historically does have the ability to become palatalization. Happens in both Spanish and Portuguese. So I think it's, we can think of a justification for intervocal and becoming, between words at least, becoming palatalized in this way. And maybe it could be this or velar, actually. I actually really like that. now that I say that. So we do still have some conflation of the velar and the alveolar going on, just not, it's only with the nasals, I think, because T and, I guess this can kind of be pronounced like this too. I just have squarely separated K out. Although I'm not sure I like that, honestly. I'm not sure I like that. I miss having the merger there. So I kind of almost want to do something else with the non-medial verbs. What if I did, because I think this is the wrench that's getting thrown into this whole plan, is like having the vowel initial. Maybe I don't allow vowel initial. What if I do? Well, that reduces even further the amount of words I can even have in this language that are bisyllabic. So what if I do, that's okay, not every word has to be bisyllabic. Let's say I require an onset consonant, but I'm allowed to still have like a series of vowels inside of a word. So if I do that, I could say, let's say I have 2, 3, 4. That's 12 times 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3 is 15. It's 180 possible bisyllabic words. I'm okay with that. I don't know if I'm going to need 180. I might end up with more than 180 words. It is a mini lang, but I might want more. So all that really means is it'll push me into 3-syllable words, which I can live with. I don't need everything to be mono or bisyllabic. So, oh, and I'm not even taking into account, oh no, it's 13, or sorry, no, it's 12 times, well, you know, it's 12 times 16, right? Because there's also the possibility of no second syllable if I have monosyllables. So that puts me at 192, which isn't much better, but it's a little bit better. Is that right? That's probably not right. Let me go back to 180 plus 2, 3, 4. It should be 180 plus 4, shouldn't it? So it's just 184, actually. I should have just added 4. Thanks for watching me fail at math today. So, okay. I think I'm okay saying that you need to have a consonant at the beginning of a word if it's a content word, maybe, and then if I do have any particles, which I kind of don't want, if I do have any, or maybe my closed class of verbs that can't be used as modifiers. I might want to use my verbs as modifiers though. So yeah, I think I'm just going to require a consonant at the beginning. And maybe the consonant T, I write as C. Yeah, so it's T, right, but it's, maybe it could also just be nothing if I wanted to. If I don't want to pronounce a consonant there, just add, like, allow that variation. Like nothing at the beginning if I want. Just glottalize the T word initially, and that's valid. I really like that, so I'll put the spelling of that too below. That brings me back to allowing that as well. Well, P, C, yeah, that's the spelling here. I kind of want to switch these two rows here, so that the spelling is on top and bottom. There we go. So that's my idea for my phonology, and then I'll have like 3 vowels. and I'm fine saying goodbye to the whole palatal idea. Okay. And I think that's where I'm going to stop for the day. I do have a lot more ideas, but I've gone quite a bit over at this point. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to save my ideas for another maybe potential detour down the line. I am going to work on this conlang on my own. Not on stream, I think, because this is just a detour. So I might do another little detour in the future, or maybe a segment of conlang with me where I return to give an update on how things turned out with this little language. So thank you for watching. I appreciate everyone who made it into the stream. Thank you to my friend for letting me share their really cool ideas for how to do this kind of direct alignment. And I hope everyone has a good rest of your time, whatever time it is for you. And goodbye.